When Borg came out, it was a rupture. Not just another RPG, but a holy hand grenade with yellow snow for shrapnel. It slapped us right in the face and laughed, and we liked it. It's a doom metal game that somehow simultaneously feels like a $50 coffee table art book, or also a donation like a guy who hands out his mixtapes in front of Walgreens. It's a hardcover pamphlet that screams, "You don't need permission. There's no rules for how this thing goes." It's not about lore or balance. It's about guts and style and entropy. It's a game that gives us license to burn the rule book, literally, and dance in the ashes. Or you can dance in the ashes, but it's way more fun to play it. And then we got Cyborg, which proved it wasn't a fluke. Same soul, new circuitry. It said this vision can evolve. Decay doesn't always just decay. It can also mutate into something alive and dead. Alive as an android dreaming of electric sheep, and as dead as one crying in the rain under Tannhauser Gate. And from there, the children of Borg multiplied. Some were beautiful. Some were almost as good. Some were as good. Some of them, in some ways, were maybe even better. They pushed things forward. And some of them, even if they missed the mark, they were able to tell stories in a way that people could hear them, that they hadn't been able to hear them that way before. But of course, not all of them. And there are a lot of them. Some of them, they're not as good. Some of them are not pushing things forward, and sometimes it feels like maybe they're holding something back. Some of them, ironically, for a book with a skeleton on the front, some of them just wear the skin. At some point, it stopped feeling like a revolution and started feeling like repetition. The edge dulled. The corpse got dressed up again and again, stinking more and more each time and spraying itself with new perfume. But of course, all that perfume and all that rot, well, it started to reek in a bad way. And not good bad. Bad. So here's the truth. I have to make this video because I love Borg. I love Cyborg. It inspires me. Every time I open it, I can still remember the first time I saw Borg, that Pantone yellow cover. It was so beautiful, so vibrant, so different than everything else around it. It opened up an entirely new room of creativity in my brain. It was like those dreams where you suddenly realize you have like a study that you've never been to in your studio apartment. It opened up that study, that new space to create new things. But I realized over time that there's a danger in the inspiration of Borg. It should inspire us to make our game. But sometimes I feel like it inspires people to just make their Borg. It's a dangerous video because I don't want to appear disrespectful, and I certainly don't want to criticize anybody for creating anything. But there's a lesson here that needs to be talked about. Because if you really want to honor Borg, even if you want to steal and copy it, the message isn't just to photocopy it. Because that's what's happening. It's getting photocopied over and over and over again until the image on there, well, it's nothing more than rot black sludge. And not the good rot black sludge. If we really want to honor Borg, then I think what we should do is copy it. Yeah, copy it. If we're going to copy anything from it, it's the main idea of the book, which is take what is sacred and burn it, and from the soot, build something only you could make.
Borg succeeds because it is ruthlessly simple, violently stylish, and immediately playable. The rules are slim, almost skeletal, yet they do exactly what they need to. Get you into the world fast and leave space for your imagination to do the heavy lifting. You don't need to learn pages of mechanics or lore to start playing. Roll a few stats, grab a random weapon, and step into a world where death is expected and meaning is made in the margins. This minimalism isn't emptiness, it's intentional negative space, where players and GMs can improvise, narrate, and world build without friction. But what makes Borg great isn't just the rules, there aren't many, it's the tone. It is unapologetically different. Every page drips with atmosphere. The layout itself is a challenge to your expectations, inviting chaos, awe, and sometimes confusion. Often confusion. It feels like someone trapped a cursed zine from another dimension inside a gamebook, and it dares to do what most RPGs don't. Abandon balance, teleology, and power fantasy in favor of doom, decay, and dark poetry. It doesn't just allow weird, it demands it. Borg isn't trying to be everything to everyone, it's trying to be something unforgettable to those willing to descend into its beautiful nihilistic abyss. Well, that was a bit overwrought, but I think it did the job.
It is in my nature to hedge, over-describe, to try my best to consider how my words will affect others, specifically people who are just trying their best or just trying to have a good time. And because of that, I think that I can sometimes water down the effect of what I wish to say. And so, right now, I'm going to try and say, as succinctly as possible, why I think this matters, and then we can pick at the edges a little bit if we need to. I think this matters because when a creative movement becomes imitation instead of inspiration, it stops moving. Because every clone that copies style without adding to the conversation, or even benefits from it more than it gives, it makes it harder to recognize the work that is doing something new. I think that it cheapens Borg by turning its language into a template instead of an inspiration. Because new designers are entering the space thinking they have to speak in this voice to be heard rather than finding their own. Because Borg was about rupturing or disrupting. It pressed against the confines of what was possible, what was expected, and what could constitute a presentation of something. There used to be these assumed rules that were replicated over and over and over again. And I think that Borg did something significant. It released a lot of people. And so in that sense, I think it's a good thing. And I don't think, nor would I possibly be suggesting, that people should be punished for creating anything. Sometimes copying something you love is one of the best ways to start your creative journey. But I do think at a certain point, we need to see, rather than another version of Borg, we need to see what's next. What's the next Borg? What's the next thing that's going to inspire people? What's the next thing that's going to create a universe of supplements and adventures and settings and all of that stuff? All of that stuff needs to keep being made forever. This is specifically talking about games that get Borg tacked onto the end of them, and it makes you wonder if they really needed that, or if it just could have been its own game. Because not only does that stifle a creative space, not only does that disincentivize people taking risks and incentivize people going with a sure shot of putting that at the end, it sometimes can also be manipulative, especially to people who are new to a space, who don't know any better, and recognizing the name of something, having something that sounds familiar, is often sufficient to provide the reason that somebody buys something. And yes, we could say, well, everyone's responsible for themselves. They all have to be consumers that are going to research before they go into a game store and make a decision. Man, I hope not. I hope that we never lose the ability to walk into an FLGS and browse rather than what's cool, rather than what's gotten good reviews. Instead, the only thing that decides is what your eye follows. You see something on a shelf and it just sparks, it just connects with you. And I do get worried sometimes that Borg is a shortcut. And in fact, I unfortunately am aware that this is a specific marketing strategy. And I think that in and of itself, we should probably take a quick segue to talk about that. All right, this next segment, I recorded it and my microphone was on mute. So I'm going to try to do it again and make it sound like I'm not just repeating myself, and you can feel free to grade me on my enthusiasm. I am so pissed off right now. I cannot. In marketing, brand dilution happens when a strong brand is overextended through too many spin-offs, imitators, low-quality products, and it weakens its original power. So that's what's happening with, Zebra Borg or composting Borg or toothpaste Borg, etc. When everything is Borg, the name loses meaning. It stops being a signal of radical creativity and it starts to feel like cosplay by default, a palette swap. The second thing is aesthetic commodification. This is when a powerful visual or cultural style is reduced to surface level aesthetics that can be repackaged and sold, stripped of content or intent. The Merkborg aesthetic, rotting ink, screaming yellow, doom serifs, funny margins, it's becoming a commodity look. Once it becomes formula, it ceases to surprise anybody. And worse, it can mask lazy design behind loud graphics. And then finally, this one you probably already know is Pavlovian branding. It's called a recognition shortcut. When players see blank-Borg, they might expect quality because of prior conditioning. Or they might just think, hey, this is a game that other people are probably playing, and now I can play it too because I recognize that as a good and popular game. That's not trust, it's reflex. And some creators do exploit this to sell shallow games that feel like Merkborg even when they lack its heart. Now, I'm not saying that everybody does this. I'm not saying that this is always intentionally done. Sometimes, perhaps, and you might not be able to imagine this because you are not this way, but sometimes people might feel like if they don't do that, they have no chance of getting anyone to pick up their game. If you're not a game designer, let me tell you something. One of the weirdest, scariest things, and one of the things that having this channel is like a extremely amazing gift, is that when I make a game, I can let people know about it. But if you don't have a YouTube channel or anything, how do you ever get anybody to know that you made a game? Supplements and expansions that build on Borg, again, those are awesome. They deepen the cathedral of rot, but the endless Borg standalones, they're diluting the ritual. Some of them are just branding exercises. They're selling, and it's weird to say because it's not that old, but Pavlovian nostalgia. They mimic the scream, but there's no soul behind it. It's not innovation. That's reflex marketing, and it's starting to get in the way of real creativity. Now, I have to believe that the creators of Borg would absolutely agree with me. And I think that they would very much want people to be making their own stuff. And I don't think that any of them are responsible for this. I don't think that this is an intentional thing. It's just a thing that happens. Oh, no. And so what do you do about it? I have no diamonds. Well, what you do about it is you start to talk about it. And it's hard because people get defensive about it. And I want to speak specifically to that. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just want to be very clear that the world would be a worse place without this kind of stuff. Okay? Basilisk by Max Moon, like these amazing, inventive, hard Scrabble sort of treats that could be created within the Borg universe. Campaigns like this. I hope that there is a part 3 of this. This is so well laid out. Even inside the core reference cards, there's such an interesting little semi-journaling card collecting game called The Card Thief. And little stuff like this is so cool. And I definitely don't in any way want people to think that I am discouraging that sort of creation. Okay. The reason why I'm even taking it upon myself to make this video, which believe me, I'm certain my next few days of comment notifications would be easier if I didn't make this video. But in terms of the games that are Borg, you know how there's like the Care Bears and then the Care Bear cousins? I'm talking about like we're on like Care Bear's third cousin once removed. So these are the Borg games that are more or less core books that are games that stand alone, but are based on Borg, and they do not show a clear reason for employing the Borg system, and their reasons are suspect. I'm not saying that they're being dishonest, but I think it's not pure. And so because of that, I just want to say, though, please, please don't stop making this awesome, creative stuff like this. But it's only one side of the argument to say, like, oh, no, I want you to, like, reach some sort of pure creative ideal. It's not just that. It's that, like, making these Borg derivatives, how do I say this? Like, I don't think, I think most people don't realize how badly they are mimicking Borg. Like, it's not good. All right, let's play a quick quiz game. And it's an impossible quiz game because you really can't answer it fully, truthfully, or fairly because you obviously know that I'm up to something. But this is one of those things where it's like, try to think of what you would say if you didn't know that I was up to something. I'm not trying to trick you, but I'm trying to prove a point. And the point is this. If I showed you these things, would you say that these 3 things have the same color? You know, even just think about if you not asking a kid, because a kid might not have a sophisticated notion of color beyond the 8 Crayola ones. But, say you were playing like a Where's Waldo game and it says, point to everything here on this desk that has the same color. And you have a mouse and you click where? Here, 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 maybe some of those dice, the belt here. This one, you probably, you'd maybe click it to determine, what's like the threshold here, but at least these 3, right? So I'm going to give a color lesson. And while you're listening to me talk about this, you are going to think that I am talking out of my ass. Not that I'm lying, but just that I am trying to sound smart. Like I'm trying to sound like I have this really, really interesting point here that only I can see the point. But just hang with me for a second, okay? This is Pantone 809C, okay? And Pantone is a universal color system, all right? And so the Pantone matching system, that's what it's called, it's PMS. It's used like a lot of other color systems, if you're familiar. It's so that if you are in Toronto and you're talking to a customer in Tokyo, you can both refer to the same color and be certain that you're referring to the same color because it has a definitive color profile. There are swatches that you can look at and see the difference between these colors. And it is an incredible color, right? I mean, this requires no sophisticated consideration here. This is an incredible color. This book screams off the shelf. I sometimes feel like when I'm passing it in an FLGS that I can feel it. It emanates, which is strange, right? Because it's like, how can any color be brighter than any other color, right? And you think, well, it's just sort of like a trick, right? Like I paint these miniatures and I'm not able to get this technique down at all, but there's a way to paint certain things so it looks like they're glowing. And it's not really that they're glowing, it's just that you make use of darker colors around them and it highlights the parts that are brighter, etc. But no, that's actually not the case with Borg's ink. Pantone 809C is the color, but the type of ink is fluorescent. Fluorescent ink is outside of the CMYK spectrum. You can't replicate it on like a consumer printer or even a screen. Case in point. This is an amazing little sandbox called The Dying Lands. It's close, but when you're really paying attention, not really, right? It's printed with fluorescent ink. You can't replicate it, and it glows because it's literally a different pigment family. It's meant to vibrate off the page. It wasn't chosen for subtlety. It was chosen to scream, right? It is obnoxious in a way. Not really, right? Like, I don't think that looking at this is obnoxious. However, I bet you if this room was painted this way, it would be quite obnoxious. And it looks chaotic. The book is totally, the Borg text is just slashed against the page. Oh my goodness, sorry. When somebody looks at this and they say, I want to make one of those, they list off the things that I've just said and they get to work. So what do they say? Well, what they say is evidence of the constant misunderstanding here. People look at Borg and they see chaos. They see these torn fonts, these clashing colors. They see text running sideways, uneven columns, at times a hostility towards the reader. right? Upside down runes. And they make a checklist. Yes, I see. Whereas normally I want to have a singular font family. Now I want many different fonts. Whereas normally I would write my sentences on, and I would finish them on the same page they start. I can now finish these sentences on a new page. Okay. And they say, I got it. I just have to make something chaotic. Easy enough. What do I have to replicate? Chaos. Except that this is not chaos. It is precision, ultra precision. It is craft. The visual style of Borg, the bleeding yellow, the brutalist black letter, the acidic pink that splashes onto some of these pages. It comes from very intentional choices. It comes from surgical design choices. Now, I've never heard Johan Noor speak on this. I doubt that he is the type of person to say, yes, only the most talented among us can possibly replicate the surgical strike of color that I put onto this page. But that's a good thing. You really wouldn't like somebody if they said stuff like that. His layouts, yes, they break rules, but they also follow to a T deeper rules of design. They have supremely exacting typographic tension, contrast, asymmetry, balance, hierarchy. They follow rules that are so fundamental that you can't notice that they are, or shall I say, you can notice, but you can't know why they're broken when they're broken. Contrast, asymmetry, balance, hierarchy. It feels like a visual scream, but it's a controlled scream. That's why it works. That's why the singer of AC/DC can sing beloved songs that sound like he's screaming for help while being squeezed in a trash compactor, and people love it. But if you try to do that, people are going to ask you to stop twice, and then they're going to call the police. So this is where we come back to Pantone. Borg doesn't just use yellow. It uses a very specific, ultra-saturated Pantone yellow. And that yellow works a perfect line between visibility and nausea. You can try this. Open a document and go ahead, without choosing Pantone 809C, go ahead and just pull a pink and a yellow off of the color swatch on Canva or Microsoft Paint, whatever, and go ahead and design a page. Tell me how that looks. Let me know if it looks like this. It probably doesn't. It probably looks like absolute shit. It's not just bright, it's tuned. It knows what it's doing to your brain. The pink is there for this chromatic contrast. The black creates negative space. It's not just mood. It's not random. It is expert level composition. That is why when you look at Johan Noor's other work, he does layout. He's doing for the new Alien game, has elevated that game from the depths. I mean, the new Alien game looks unbelievable. It is beautiful. And yet it's almost all the same, with some really awesome solo stuff added. Ooh, I can't wait. But it looks so good, and it's hard to say why. Just like it's hard to just look at Jordan shoot a 3 and be like, yeah, I can do that. You just push the ball towards the net. But of course, if you don't know what you don't know. And so somebody, especially somebody who is just looking to cash in on something, which I'm not saying is everybody that does this, is probably not even most people, but it's undeniable that it's some, they see it and say, great, slap some yellow on it, throw in a few skulls, call it a day. Money, money, money. They're not nailing the aesthetic. They're missing the entire craft behind it, and that's why it looks like junk. They're mimicking the noise but not the structure. And what we end up with is not expression most of the time. We get visual clutter. We don't get attitude, we get pastiche. I'm going to read a selection from one of them right now. I'm not going to say which one it is because I don't, want to specifically make anyone feel bad. I encourage you to just hear this without going hunting for which one this is. But this is very much case in point. All right, so on the bottom of this page of this specific Borg derivative is the following. It is a group of these symbols that I presume is supposed to look like the Borg runic symbol here. And then, of course, next to it, it says these symbols have absolutely nothing to do with this article. I assume that means the page it's on. I just had some empty space. So here we're attempting to mimic Borg's chaotic playfulness, its irreverence. Oh, I'm being totally random. But again, it is misunderstanding Pantone 809C and thinking it's yellow. Borg's irreverence is not actually random. The visual and symbolic inserts serve tone, ritual, world building, texture. Even the cryptic symbols maintain the book's mystique. And I don't actually know if this is ever explained, or I once felt that maybe it was like specifically a certain organization of letters. I don't know. It looks awesome. Instead, we get this little transactional betrayal. I paid money for this product. I paid $10 for the PDF. So this line, intentionally or not, communicates to me, I didn't try here, but maybe if I make a joke about it, that makes it okay. That's a bad deal, man. I don't know you. I don't know you. You have no ethos to me. And furthermore, you are failing to understand that Borg sets a high standard for quality per page. When you buy into that look, you're expecting that level of care. Instead, I get someone cashing in on the visual brand without the labor of meaning making. I mean, I challenge you, if you think I'm being overly sensitive about this, petty, I'm not doing it actually to criticize that. I'm actually doing it to build a case for the fact that this is actually a bad strategy. Okay? Here's how you know this. Going through Borg, and if you have the book, go ahead and do this right now. Is there any single page in this entire book that is not fascinating, captivating, alluring, memorable, brilliant? I mean, there are not many tabletop role-playing games that you can flip through without at least 30% snooze-worthy pages where you're just like, yeah, okay, here's this one. And, it's hard not to. Like, there's details that have to be read, and it's part of the labor that goes into producing a very vivid world. But Borg doesn't do that. We don't get that, but we get something in exchange. We don't just get screw you. We get an experience. It mistakes random for bold. True boldness in Borg comes from restraint, disruption, clarity, not from whimsical clutter. Throwing in unused symbols and calling it meta because you're self-aware, it doesn't disrupt expectations. It just, in a very small way, and I'm not upset about it, I'm just saying in a small way, it breaks trust. It copies the attitude again and misses the structure. The author clearly thinks they're matching the tone, but the tone isn't something you can declare. You can't just do tone by fiat. You have to build it with design, language, rhythm, intentional contrast. Again, it's cosplay. It's a costume. It's not substance. This is exactly what happens when a strong aesthetic becomes commodified. People adopt the brand signals, the fonts, the colors, the attitude, thinking they're enough, but they're not. Without structure, without meaning, it becomes a hollow echo of the original. It's erasure of creative respect. It's this feeling that somebody thinks that they can wave the same flag as Merkborg, but not carry the weight of that flag. Okay, now I don't know if this will land. This whole thing I have been sort of building on here of this Pantone 809C. So maybe all of this was worth naught. But to me, I just want you to know, if this means anything, is that I really mean what I'm about to say here. Okay, and it's something you may not be able to imagine, but I hope you can understand it. When people look at Merkborg yellow and say, "Oh yeah, bright neon," they might even say highlighter yellow. If they're really savvy, they might say, yeah, that's very distinct, and that's fluorescent. Yeah. But for me, it is Pantone 809C. And that matters because I am colorblind. I have what is likely just general achromia. It's rare. They used to think it was deuteranopia, but they're now thinking it's just achromia. My most males in my family have progressive color blindness. The point is, I don't experience color the way that most people do. Some videos that I do on this channel, I pause several times because I have to use my color picker app, and because I use my phone as my camera, it's a pain in the ass. But color is very important in games, especially when certain things are labeled. Sometimes I'll watch a video later and realize that I completely made a mistake about something because it was color coded. I'm not trying to garner sympathy. I'm trying to say that when I say that yellow is Pantone 809C, I'm not showing off that I know the name of that. In fact, I don't know other than those two by heart, but I know I looked up and I use that color system, because that color system, or any of the other ones, standardized ones, that is how I anchor my reality. So what might be a vibe to someone else is for me a fixed point. I don't know what yellow looks like. I mean, I do. I remember it, or at least I remember what I thought it was. I don't see what you see. Everything that I said about this, other than its illumination, it is like definitely bright to me in a way that feels like it's like backlit. But otherwise, I looked it up. It's not a feeling to me, it's a fact. And color is something that most people, again, experience in a literally sensual way. It doesn't need any description because it just is what it is. But not to me. To me, it is a label. And to me, that is why this whole conversation is important. People look at the Merkborg aesthetic and they assume it is chaotic, messy, improvised, off the cuff. But the truth is, it is carefully chosen. It's measured. Someone made 1,000 tiny decisions to get it to feel that way. So when others come along and try to replicate the chaos without understanding the structure, the choices behind it, it's like calling every bright yellow close enough. But for some of us, close enough isn't close at all. The easy thing to say, and I'm sure I'll get it in the comments section, it's fine. The easy thing to say is just shut up. Like, just let people do what they want. Let people make what they want. Let people enjoy what they want. Don't mess with happy. People are enjoying this. Yes, people should make what they enjoy. That's the foundation of this hobby, especially solo gaming, of DIY hobbies in general, independent indie design. But creative ecosystems stagnate when everyone pulls from the same aesthetic well. And this is not just a Merkborg problem. This is a major, major preoccupation that I have about this world. One of the things that bothers me about AI is that it does not have spontaneous thought. It only gathers, turns words into token signifiers, and it rules out, literally, I think this is literally Minority Reports. Like it rules out different interpretations, and it arbitrarily decides on a interpretation of reality based on how often statistically one word follows another. And what happens when people start telling me that they're using it to determine how to, write a response to their girlfriend's letter about how they don't have emotional intimacy anymore, turning over all of these things to this thing that they think is sentient, but it's just a coding, decoding. There's no room for sentience in it. And furthermore, people are just taking its word for it over and over and over again. They're taking its word for it. Another police car. People are taking its word for things. And eventually, those alternative understandings of things, they're just going to fade. People aren't going to know them. They're not using critical thinking. They're not even going to consider them, especially because so many people think that this AI, and it's not AI, ChatGPT, whatever it is has an intellect, that it's making choices, that it's making decisions, that it feels certain ways about things. And because of that, we are stuck. We are going to be stuck with the 2025 consensus of reality repeated over and over and over again. And it becomes stagnant. Nothing new happens. It becomes fossilized. The knowledge becomes fossilized. The genre becomes fossilized. What began as an anarchic revelation turns in that was a misspeak, but actually, revelation, revolution, it turns into a template. Instead of deviance, we get devotion. The real homage to Borg isn't to echo its style, it's to honor its ethos. Destroy what came before and dare to make something untested, even ugly, even wrong. So next time you make a game and you're worried that nobody is going to find it, that's probably what people were worried about before they released every amazing game that you love. When we dilute this brand, when we overextend it, when there's too many spin-offs, imitators, low quality, weakened articles because they're replicated over and over again. This is exactly what happens when we just keep pressing Control-C. Throw off the Borg. Unshackle yourself from that. Show me your game. When I was in recovery, I learned that I had a really, really hard time taking advice. I mean, I guess I always knew that, but I did the work and figured out some reasons why I had a hard time with that. One of the biggest things is that it, of course, as many things are, is my ego. If somebody was giving me advice, that meant that they were condescending to me. They were wiser than me. They were smarter. They thought I was naive, which perhaps could be the case sometimes, usually not. But I think one of the things that I struggled with was I used to think that if advice was good, that meant you had to take it. And if you took the advice, that meant you had to do it and you'd have to change. And of course, change is hard. So I'd push back on advice because I didn't want to do the difficult path of change. But of course, doing the bigger work, getting sober, forces you to choose a more middle path on a lot of things. And so I offer you this advice, and you could take it or leave it, or somewhere in the middle. Like if it is useful to you, maybe it reminds you of something, maybe it makes you nod your head, whatever. Maybe it doesn't apply to you at all. But this is just something I've learned, is that when you complete something and you use a safer method, a well-trodden path, something that is more certain to bring positive results simply because it has been proven before. This is especially true with creative stuff. The yield of that in material means is usually more positive. In terms of writing or creating, you usually get money, attention, whatever you want from that. And when you push your own ideas out, there's more of a chance that you could just kind of be shouting into the void. But I also know that in the times that I have chosen to follow my own instincts and share my own creative vision for things, there is something about that makes me bulletproof. It makes me feel proud of myself regardless of how other people take it. And so I don't think it's some sort of moral failure to, use a well-worn method like this, especially for something as good as Borg. And talking about a middle path, obviously, even the whole premise of this video, like, is it really the right conclusion to just totally eliminate all future Borg-like games? Oh, hell no. We definitely should eliminate all 5e compatible games first. I mean, it's not even a question, right? I have solo Borg coming. I'm super excited about
Instead
that.
of the
It's
Borg,
totally dedicated to solo play. But as far as blank Borg core systems,
ignored.
I think those. No, hold on.
I think
Okay, how about
really
you should,
going to need a reason.
take your shield
to
and
get
your
that.
sword.
And that reason is
that's overplayed.
has
to be. Are you giving me something new? Not just a different
Borg
costume. Snorg? I don't want just a different
Instead of
uniform.
Borg,
I need
that
to
works.
know
Instead of Borg,
why it's new and
please
different.
share
I need to know
Snorg.
why it
Oops,
had
bye.
to be a Borg. Because otherwise, I think I've had enough of blank Borg, and it's time for me and all of us to see blank Jorg. I am so sorry. What a terrible way to end the video.